Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing Bird from the Avalon Gangster Crips, who was shot and killed by an 11 Deuce Neighborhood Crip at a gas station. Now, Mark Lewis, aka Bird, grew up in South Central Los Angeles in 1984. Bird would be raised in a section controlled by the Avalon Gangster Crips. Now, Bird had relatives and family members who were also from the Avalons. Now, the Avalon Gangster Crips consist of multiple sets, like the 40s, the 5 Trays, the 8 Gardens, and the 11 Sixes. Now, the Avalons go all the way back to the early 70s, being established by OG Jamel Barnes. Now, this gang has known to have a fierce reputation in the streets of LA, being tied to murders, shootings, and robberies. Now, the Avalons have a lot of enemies in its surrounding areas, like the 4-Pack, the Neighborhoods, the Swans, and many other hoods. Now, the 11 Deuce Neighborhood Crips, although a much smaller hood compared to the Avalons, they were very active and they harbored a dislike for the Avalon Gangster Crips. Now, in 2012, a YG named Young Blue Deuce was a frontline repping the 11 Deuces. Now, at the age of 22, he had a very violent history and a very short temper when it came to his behavior in the streets. Now, this short temper would eventually lead him to making an even worse decision in just a few months. On March 26, 2012, 11 Deuce Neighborhood Crips, Young Blue, Peanut, Deetra Holmes, and her niece, Raquel Staves, all would attend a party on the 112th in town given by another neighborhood Crip. Now, after spending time at the party, Holmes and her niece Staves would leave this party and head to the Valero gas station right down the street to go grab some snacks. Now, Young Blue and Peanut decided to stay at the party for the time being. Now, at that same time, Bird from Avalon, along with his girlfriend Porter, was at the same Valero gas station on South Avalon, getting ready to get some gas. Now, this Valero gas station was directly in the 11 Deuces set. Now, as Deetra Holmes entered into the gas station, Bird from Avalon was already paying for his gas. Now, outside the gas station, Young Blue and Peanut from 11 Deuce would be seen walking across the street, headed towards the gas station, leaving the house party. Moments later, Bird would come walking out the gas station to head back to his pump, and that's where Young Blue and Peanut would walk past him. Now, as Bird opened his gas cap to start pumping his gas, that's where Peanut started pressing him and asked him, "Where you from, nigga? Where you from?" And Bird responded, "I'm from Avalon." And that's when Peanut yelled out, "Get that nigga, cuz. Get that nigga, cuz." And that's when Young Blue lifted up his shirt, pulled out the gun, and opened fire. Young Blue would let off 5 to 6 shots, hitting Bird multiple times. After Bird collapsed on the ground between the gas tank and his car, Peanut from 11 Deuce would walk up and start kicking Bird, yelling out, "This neighborhood, fuck Avon." Immediately afterwards, Young Blue and Peanut would flee the scene. Bird's girlfriend would immediately get out of the car screaming for help, but in the process, she would call 911. Deetra Holmes would immediately come running out of the gas station, and she would see Porter screaming for help. She would tell Porter that she was going to find the shooters. So she got back into her car and she drove away. Now, once she realized what had happened, she decided to go look for Blue and Peanut. Now, as Holmes drove down the street, she would see Peanut running on the sidewalk. Peanut would hop in the car and she would give him a ride to 120th and Avalon to drop him off at an apartment. Now, not long after, police would finally arrive at around 8:45, and Bird's girlfriend would tell officers that 2 black men had shot him and fled the scene. EMTs would arrive shortly after, and they would rush Bird to the emergency room. But sadly, at around 9:45 p.m., Mark Lewis, aka Bird, would be pronounced dead. Now, detectives, while on the scene, would also obtain surveillance footage from the gas station, which would show 2 suspects fleeing the scene. Now, only a few days would go by after the shooting, and detectives would interview Bird's girlfriend, Porter, who would identify Peanut as the man that walked up to Bird and asked him where he was from. Now, 2 weeks after this interview, police would arrest Hassani Reynolds, aka Peanut, for the murder. They would also detain Deetra Holmes in the process. Now, during questioning, Holmes would tell police that she overheard a phone conversation with Peanut bragging about Young Blue shooting the victim at the gas station. Now, the following day, detectives would interview Raquel Staves, who identified Peanut and Young Blue as the suspects in this murder. And not long after this interview, police would speak with Bird's girlfriend, Porter, once again, and they would show her a picture of Young Blue, and she would identify him as the man who shot and killed Bird. Once they confirm Yank Blue as the shooter, they will put a warrant out for Yank Blue's arrest, but it would not be until a year later, in March of 2013, when police would arrest Yank Blue in Las Vegas. Now, a few months later, both Yank Blue and Peanut would both be officially charged with first-degree murder. Now, Deidre Holmes would also be charged, but only as an accessory after the fact. Now, by the time the trial came, later that year, Deidre Holmes would take a plea deal, and in return, she would testify. Also testifying will be Raquel Staves, along with Porter, Bird's girlfriend. Now, both Staves and Porter would testify that Yank Blue was indeed the shooter. Although it was dark outside, they both would state that the gas station was well lit enough to make out both suspects. And by the end of the trial, Yank Blue, along with Peanut from 11 Deuce, will both be found guilty of first-degree murder and will face their sentencing. Now, Yank Blue will be sentenced to 50 years to life in prison, and Peanut will be sentenced to 75 years to life in prison, which also included a prior felony conviction. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.